Last week, we already reached this section. We already learned about the JavaScript file. So we are making the CRUD with the basic Ajax. And the code that we have here is about the script CRUD. So this is the read function. We already learned how this mechanism works between the web browser and the server. So we have one in the middle, which is the Ajax engine to communicate between the web browser and the server. And we use this CSRF middleware token to communicate between the server and the web browser. And for every way of the success, we can make a new function, and then we want to show it into, for example, this is the section in the HTML to show the result. Okay, so we are showing the result. Okay. Now, if we go to the next, we are going to learn about the jQuery. So what is jQuery? It is a kind of basic template in JavaScript. So I do not want to discuss many things about the jQuery, but this is the very basic one. So jQuery is one of many available libraries. So it provides function for manipulating the web pages. Manipulating means you can edit or you can delete or you can modify something. And this is based on the JavaScript. It mentioned that it has a good performance. And this jQuery, people say that it will help you to keep your JavaScript code clean. So whenever you make the JavaScript, okay, so maybe you will need many space or many line, but with the jQuery, it will reduce the space. And people say that if you understand the jQuery, it will help you to protect the security. But of course, you need to understand the language clearly. So with the jQuery, that's the benefit. And the downside or the delimitation is you have an extra dependency. So you need to learn a new library. You need to learn a new language. That's the downside. So the jQuery is a cross-platform JavaScript library. So the cross-platform means you can use in any operating system. For example, now I'm using Windows. So if your OS is Mac, then it's available with the cross-platform. If you are using Linux, then it's also available with the cross-platform. Okay? So those kind of cross-platform library now is getting more popular because we do not know what the operating system of the user. It is a kind of new programming style that use selector engine. So we will learn what is selector engine. And this selector engine is to enable DOM. DOM is data object model, element selection, traversal, and manipulation. So let's see. Okay. There are some features of the jQuery. For example, if we have the DOM element selections, so we can use multi-browser open source selection engine like Sizzle. So there's one multi-browser open source selector engine. Oh, not this restaurant. Okay, so this is the jQuery. So this is the selector. Yeah, you can see if you want to use this one, then it means you need to understand the commands and etc. Okay. So they have the DOM element, and then what is the element and what is the selector. So we can have multi-browser selector engine, and we can also use the DOM manipulation based on the CSS selectors. So CSS is the style, okay, and we can use the element names and the attributes. And using the jQuery, we can have the events. So event means, yeah, for example, in this one, maybe, do you know hover? So hover means, yeah, if you move your mouse like this one, when you go here, then yeah, it shows the link. It shows the link like this one. So this one is the hover. Okay. And then active. For example, if I do not active for 10 seconds, so the monitor can be turned to black or dark. So that kind of things, it is available in the jQuery. Or visited link. So if you know in the href, if I already visit one link, then the link becomes like purple. Okay? For example, here, yeah, if I click this one is not available. Okay, but you can do with the visited. So when you visited one link, it will change the color. So that kind of events is available on the jQuery. Oh, effects and animations. So you can make animation with the jQuery. And of course, you can do with the Ajax. This an asynchronous JavaScript and XML. And then it is default and promise object to control asynchronous processing. We can use the jQuery for JSON parsing. And it is extensible. So you can extend to other kind of libraries. And there are some utilities. And there are some compatibility methods, especially in the modern browsers. So the browsers now, yeah, is varied. Okay, now you use the Google Chrome, but there are still many other browsers available, and all those browsers support the jQuery. And yeah, it is a multi-browser support. So if now in your computer you're using Internet Explorer, and then you use Google Chrome, and I guess there's one, this one is, what is this? This is Microsoft Edge. Okay, so those kind of browsers, they support the jQuery. So it means you don't need to worry if you learn the jQuery. So here is just a very simple the jQuery. The same with the CSS, like the bootstrap.css, and then like the JavaScript. Okay, you can go to any bootstrap site and then call the bootstrap.js. Okay. So in the jQuery, you can also use that one. Okay. So there are several ways to start using the jQuery. So the jQuery you can download. So there's the jQuery.com. So you can download it. Yeah, this is the whether you want to use the lightweight or you have the CSS3, the cross browser. So every browser can have the same view. So you can download the jQuery, or if you do not want to download, then you can just use the okay. I guess I already gave you this. Okay, so you can just go to this code. So this is the latest one, and it is the minimum. So you don't need to install the heavy code. So you just use the latest and the minimum, because sometimes in the full support jQuery, it is very heavy. If your internet is not good, then you will upload all the things in the HTML file with a long time. Okay? So that's why usually people use the min. It means the minimum. So the minimum is the most efficient code if you want to use the jQuery. Okay, so we always use this one to minimize the computational power. Okay. But if your computer is good and if you need to have a very uh, beautiful code, or if you want to make a very fancy website, then you can have the full support of the jQuery. So if you want to download it, then you need to store in your hard disk. Okay? And then you can do the reference, the JS or the JavaScript file in your HTML, and then access the jQuery. So this is the one with this one. So you can refer to like what we did in this file. Let's say in the base, yeah, we have the static JS like this one. So usually we can also create this one with a new directory. For example, you want to add jQuery. Then you can put all the files related to jQuery in that folder. But in Korea, the internet is available anywhere, then you don't need to download. Yeah, in some cases, you need to download it to make it available offline. And we need to use the dollar sign. So every time you see the dollar sign, it means it is related to the jQuery. Okay. So if you do not want to download the jQuery, so you can include the CDN. If you still remember, this is the content delivery network. Okay. So we can use this one in the head. Okay. Or you can use the specific version. Okay. So usually the specific version is available in the Microsoft. Okay. Yeah. So, oops. Yeah. So this is the Ajax.ASP.NET CDN. So this is based on the Microsoft. So they have their own jQuery. It's also, this is the jQuery from the Google. So they have different version. So they have the different version. So yeah, you can choose what the jQuery that you want to refer to. You are going to use the Google jQuery, or you are going to use the Microsoft jQuery. Or even though they are a little bit different, but most of them are the same. And you can see here, they have different in the version number. So it depends on the version number. So some functions might be available and some functions might not be available. So in the jQuery syntax, we need to understand the dollar sign. Okay. So every time you use the dollar means it is the syntax from the jQuery. So the jQuery syntax is tailor-made. So we can select the HTML element and performing some actions on the element. So if you are in the documents, okay, if you still remember in the jQuery we have here, sorry, in the JavaScript, you have this dollar, okay, and you have this dollar. Yeah, this is based on the jQuery. So I want to get the document. Okay, what is this document? So it is the document. We have this HTML. And then if it is ready, then I will check if, again, another dollar. So this refers to the document. And if I explain with the shop, what is the meaning by shop? So the shop means something related to the class name or something related to the ID in your document. So that's a very simple definition. We have shop is like the ID, and then we have dollar. It is representing the jQuery. So if I have the shop ID, so it means I want to go to the document side with this ID. If I have this one, so I have the dollar shop result. So I want to go to the section result. So this in the index. Yeah, the ID is result. So this is based on the jQuery, and also like this one, dollar result. So it means this is the short way to access the HTML. So the basic syntax is dollar, and then we call selector. So selector is anything. We can have like div. So div means, yeah, this is the divisor. If you have this one part about div, then you can select that part of div, or you can select a part of the ID. And then if you separate with dot, it means you will do something, or this is the action. So if you can see this one, I just want to know the selector. I select the result. But here, I would like to select the result and I would like to do something. What is something? I would like to do the HTML and give the response. So it means if everything is correct with this Ajax, then in the result, show the HTML. Okay. Here is the definition. If the dollar is assigned to define or access the jQuery, and then a selector is to find or to query the HTML element, and then we have the action to be performed on the element. So we can have like this dollar this dot hide. So it means I want to hide the current element, or I want to dollar p dot hide. So I want to hide all the p elements. Dollar dot test. So it means I want to hide all the element with class equal to test. So dot means the class, and then shop means ID. Okay, so what is class? If you check on this, for example, page, yeah, you can see there are many class. So in the jQuery, it can refer to this as dot. Okay, so this is the class. If you are dealing with the ID, oh, I don't have any ID here. Okay, I don't have any ID here. I don't have any ID. This one, ID title, ID result, ID content, ID create. So you can access that ID with the shop. Okay. So if you want to go to the detail of the jQuery, so you can take a look on the code here. So there are many events. Okay. I will not explain all those things. Okay, so you can take a look. And if you need this one, like the key down, key press. So usually if you're making a game, okay, so it is necessary to understand. Mouse down, mouse enter, mouse leave, and so on. So there are many events. Okay, so let's just continue with this Ajax one. Okay, if you are looking at the code, okay, so we are using all the jQuery syntax. So last week we also used the jQuery in the basic Ajax, in the basic REST, and yeah, I continue with this one to use the jQuery. Okay. So this is what I explained last week. Okay. So here is the document. Okay. So we are looking at the result in the index.html and then do the read function in the JavaScript if result is not null. And then this is the read function, and we are doing the things here like we are responding the result after everything here is correct. Okay. So there is one thing here, asynchronous false. Okay, so I explain this one. Setting the asynchronous to false means that the statements you are calling has to complete before next statement in your function can be called. So if you set asynchronous true, then that statement will begin its execution and the next statement will be called regardless of whether the asking statement has completed yet. So you can see here, I will check the URL read, I will check the type post, and then this one false. So false means that the statement you're calling has to complete before the next statement in your function. So it means this one, it is the function. This is the function read. And if you are making true, then it will always like checking. Okay. But this one, we make sure that everything is completed. Now it can go to the data. Okay. So it will not always checking. So it means just checking only one. Once it is completed, then go to the data. That's this is very simple example. So it's not about the many data. Usually, if you want to see this one, yeah, there should be a lot of data. But just understand that we can make the asynchronous to false at this moment. Okay, that's about the jQuery for a simple way. And let's create more function. So the CRUD in the Ajax. So the first is about C. C is the create. So let's make a new function in the fuse underbar CRUD.py. Fuse CRUD. Okay. So the previous one, we have the index, and then we have read, and then we have a new function which is create. So the idea is the same with what we already learned before the mid exam. We have create, so we want to check on the post model if we have the title here and then we have the content here. So we would like to request according to the title and we want to request according to the content. And every time it is required from the web, then we will save it. So it is based on the index.html. After we have the views, let's make a new path. Okay. This is always be necessary because it is the way to run the code. So if it is read, then we will run the read. Okay. So we will run this read. If we have the create, so we will run the function create. Okay. So the link is important to make sure that the code, oh sorry, the function is executed. And then now I will not update the HTML. Instead of updating the HTML, now I use the JavaScript. So everything should be done in the JavaScript. So I will not modify the HTML now. And I will not do things in the backend. So I will just do everything in the JavaScript, or it is in the client side. So please copy and paste this one. Okay, you can copy this, and then you can open the JavaScript, and you can see there's one section here about create. So you have create, edit, update, and delete. So you can have this in the create section. Sorry. So here, yeah, now the code is a little bit complex, okay, but I will explain one by one. Now let's try. I will run. So we will run this one in the group. Yeah, this is the code, and it shows this title and content, and you have create. Okay. If you click create, yeah, it shows please complete the required file. Sorry, field. So we have two fields. So here the first field is title, and the second field is content. Title and content. Let's see if I want to create the fifth post, and the content is I don't know, information system, for example. Okay, yeah, this is just example. And then you can click create. Then it is automatically added to this one without changing the page. And then you can see there is no process taken, more like what we did on the mid exam, before the mid exam. So this one is very simple about the processing, but of course the idea about the code is not that simple as what we already learned before the mid exam. So let's see. If we call the create, so what is create here? We have this dollar sign. It is based on the jQuery, and then we have the shop. Shop means ID. So we need to find where is the ID create. So the ID create is in the this one. Oh, this is a button. So the ID create is a button, and this is the action. So we already learned there are many actions, whether the you can make like hover or timestamp and everything. So if you okay, like this one. So there are many events here. find, blur, change, and everything like click. Okay, so you can use that one. And now we are using on. And then if in this one click, so you can change like hover, you can change to bind and everything. So if you are click on this button, then the function you need to execute. So if you learn about Java or in Java, I think it's the same. We use pipe. So it is a function without written value. So you need to execute it. And you can see here, the jQuery will give you $sign to indicate this is a variable. And what is this variable? This variable is from the $id title dot value. So what is the ID title? The ID title is from this one, ID title. And I want to get the value. So if you put the value in this text, then it will be in the variable title. The same here, content. This is the variable content, and I want to get it from the ID content. What is the ID content? Here is the ID content. And then I got the value, and after I get the title and the value, I need to check one more time. If this title or, okay, so this is or, the contents are empty, then show the alert. Please complete the required field. So if not empty, let's do this one. Okay, what this is? So the first is to go to the create link. What is this? So the create link is the create here. So if you are going to this create link, then you will run the create function. The create function will get the title and will get the content. Okay? And after we get the title and the content, yeah, we want to say that this is the type of post. Okay? And we need to define the data. What is the data? Okay, title. So title is the data. Uh, the title is the data here. And then the content, it is the data here. So we want to pass, okay? We want to pass, this is from the HTML to the variable of the jQuery or JavaScript, and then we pass this variable into the server. And we want to pass this variable into the server. And then again, we want to define the CSRF middleware token. And then I would like to mention that it is the input. So just get all the value and then put it into this, and put it into this title and this content for the post model. So everything, if it is fine, then go to read function. What is read function? Again, we will read from the data. So we will read from this read. This is to get from the database that we already have. And then let the title be just empty. And then let the content also be just empty. So it means after you insert After you insert the fifth post, make this empty. Make this empty. So for example, if I have 6 posts, for example, for jQuery, okay, after you create, then it will automatically be deleted. And the data is now created in this section. Okay. Oh, okay. It seems it is already the time. Okay. Any questions?